Hi, it's Heather from Electric Needle Girls here. Today I'm going to talk about making minimal waste accurate flying geese units, and I have got it all stepped out and we're going to move ahead. As you can see from the grid on the mat that this unit measures at 6.5 by 3.5. Now I made it slightly oversized and I trimmed it down, and I'll show you my process for that. That's number one. This is number two. So what we do to get here is we have one large square, we make 4, and we have 4 smaller squares. So I've got this contrast. I've ruled a line across the center from diagonal corner to diagonal corner. Now in this case I've used a friction pen, which does become invisible with the hot iron, but it will be in the seam allowance, so even if it leaves a little bit of a mark, it's on the wrong side of the fabric and we'll never see it in the seam allowance. So I now have these 4 units and I'll show you what I do with them after that. Let's move this out of the way. Trying to be very organised. This is my step 3. I was going to pin those on there, wasn't I? That's why I had that. Oh, I'm sorry. I take 2 of these units. I did jump ahead. Sometimes I get a bit like that. And I put 1 into this corner. And I put a second one into this corner. And I line, you can see this line has lined up. Now I tend to pin these in place just to hold them there. Then when I've done this, and we save the other 2 squares until a later step. So I do that and I take it to the machine. Thank you. My assistant Vicky is here and she's helping me. We're up to step 3. And then I have sewn 1/4 inch either side of this line. Now we want it to be relatively accurate, but if it's not quite accurate, don't stress. Lift it up a bit, I'm out of the shot. What am I doing? Oh, you see Vicky's hands. Okay, then, can we see that line? Good. Now I've taken a ruler and my rotary cutter and I cut these into 2 pieces. So now I have 2 big triangles and with 2 small triangles attached to them, and you've moved my other piece away. Is that okay? So I've ended up, when I've pressed the smaller triangles back, I've ended up with a shape that looks vaguely like a heart. A lot of people describe it as looking like a heart. And so we have 2 of those, and I pop this third and then 4th square onto the other piece into this corner, and it's this one, number 5. Here we are. Get rid of those, get rid of that. Number 5, I've sewn 1/4 inch either side of that line. I'll remove my pins because it's done. Move that out of the way. So I end up with 2 of these units out of the 4 small squares and the 1 larger square. And I cut that and I press those back. And I've pressed the seam allowance away from the goose into the sky. So I have 4 of those. There we go. And now I'm going to show you how I trim them. This is step number 6, and I've got 2 different ways of showing you how to trim them. One, I use a fairly standard ruler, and that is because we want this piece to unfinished, so it's before it's sewn into a quilt. We want it to be unfinished at 3.5 high by 6.5 wide. Now to get this fairly accurate, I just tried this out. I have got a 45-degree line on my ruler and I want to go up The 1/4 inch line on my ruler is here. And so that I know that it's square, I've just moved that. There we go. I've got the 45-degree line on the ruler on that seam line. And the 1/4 inch line is, it's a 1/4 inch above the point. I might point to the point on this one so you know what I'm talking about. I want to be a 1/4 inch above that, back this way, I'm told. A 1/4 inch up above that intersection, so that when we put it into a block, that we have a really nice point there. So for this one, I'm doing it this way, and I trim it across that way, and I get rid of my waste. So this is the kind of waste I have. And then, because I want it to finish at 6.5, sorry, I just need to be a little bit accurate here. To finish at 6.5 inches wide, I measure 3 1/4, which is half of 6.5, and I measure it from that same point again, and I trim here. Then I have to turn it around, and I want that 6.5 and the 3 1/4, 3.5. So I've come down 3 1/2 inches from there and along 3 1/4 inches from that point. And we are then going to square these two sides up. So as you can see, this is the amount of waste we have, and we end up with a very, very accurate flying goose unit. And that makes putting it together into a quilt much easier. I'm also just going to quickly demonstrate a tool that I use because I'm a bit of a gadget queen, and I'll give you that. Now I just have to go to this. The 3x6 is the F size on this unit. This is the Ultimate Flying Geese tool by Creative Grids. We have them on our website, and we only have to use, we do 4 cuts, but we only move the ruler twice. So I've lined up my F point into that corner, and this says trim 1. I'm sorry it's upside down. I have to do it the way up that it works for me. And so I trim up and across, and then we turn the ruler, template, and the unit around. And again, we go to the F mark. I have to line this up, and I can't talk and line at the same time, but anyway, that's just, so this is trim 2. I've got the F line into my goose, and I trim that way and that way. Now again, I've ended up with a very accurate, I'll put it on the mat so we can see, a very accurate piece. Can we see that in the screen, Vicky?
Yep.
Good. And that's our waste. I think that's an acceptable amount of waste. I don't like making flying geese where you put a square on a rectangle and sew and flip and trim, and then you end up with a leftover triangle. I'd much rather make that. We will put some measurements for what sizes to cut for what, to get what finished size to get on the information for this. But there we go. Thank you from Electric Needle Girls. Check out our website, subscribe, all the things you do with social media, and I'll talk to you another time.